Your empire is crumbling, and you wonder why. Well, everyone's life has changed in numerous ways. It's so hard to see through a Death Valley days. I said this a long time ago, Frank. You're gonna get yourself in trouble if you don't, strike while
Well, good evening, friends and associates around town, around the globe. It's the 14th of August, 2014. That has a nice sound, doesn't it? You historians out there looking at this recorded media will find lots of interesting facts about this point in time. And you've come to the right place to find them, because here on the Public Affairs Show, we talk about things that are not being discussed widely, not being discussed in depth on the national mainstream media. We have sources, we have insider information, and we have a research staff that is indefatigable. At least that's what it says on their t-shirts. And as a result, we can take you where nobody takes you. We cover a wide variety of subjects every time we get together, and this will be no exception tonight. We've got a lot to talk about, and so let's just plunge right in. This is, after all, hurricane season, and we are having a pretty weird hurricane season, according to people just observing and according to professional meteorologists and weather watchers. They all seem to be baffled by the scope or lack of scope, the intensity or lack of intensity, and sometimes the direction of all of the storm activity that's going on right now, or should we say, the little storm activity that's going on relative to what might be expected to be happening. You got me so far? It's like we in Texas, we here along the Gulf Coast are always preparing for hurricanes, and sometimes we get hit with them, but nothing seems to be coming our way. Interestingly, the island of Hawaii, where nothing in the form of a hurricane has come round in decades, has been hit a couple times already. Isn't that curious? You probably heard about that on TV anyway, that Hawaii bore the forefront, or for the forefront, or withstood an attack by the forces of nature, which was uncommon. Well, the thing that you probably did not hear is that although Hawaii was in the eye of a hurricane this year, or hurricanes, Hawaii wasn't where it normally is. In case you didn't know, and I'm pretty sure about that, there has been a top secret operation going on since early in the summer, as far as I can tell. In fact, I've got a top secret report here. I can't actually read any of the text to you, but I think you get the idea here. It's called the Hawaiians Island Relocation Project. It's something that you haven't heard about this. And I'd like to be able to fill you in on all of the details. The problem is this has been a quick find on my part. The research staff just uncovered it this week and brought it to me. We haven't been able to figure out why it was moved or where. Hawaii, I'm talking about. Now, you know, there has been talk by some rich people, and I won't name names, maybe, well, I won't now, maybe I will later, who said they'd probably go visit Hawaii a lot more often if it was closer. I suspect, even though I'm not sure, that Hawaii is a lot closer, and that's why it got to be in the path of a hurricane this year, 2014. You historians studying this, you probably know all about it, but my friends and neighbors here in this time and place haven't heard anything about it. As I say, if something occurs to me while we're going through these other stories, I'll let you know, but I have no idea where they moved Hawaii, but I know how they moved it, and this will surprise you because I have a picture, also top secret, of where they eventually relocated it. This was an aerial photograph, I'm told, and the amazing thing is that they moved the entire island with 2 very small vehicles. They're not even pickup trucks. You can see them there under the palm trees. How they did this, I don't know, but that's the only tidbit of information I can share with you at this point. Somebody was able to move the entire Hawaiian Islands complex in 2 cars. Well, surprising as that is, let me say something else about hurricanes, because you know they've gone through the alphabet a lot of times already on a first name basis when they name hurricanes, and as a matter of fact, you may have heard about this. There are a couple of proposals out there right now about naming hurricanes that would change the way we do that. One way that's being proposed and talked about is to name hurricanes and tropical storms after politicos and political pundits, and of course this would be a process of using last names and of course not playing favorites, not you know, naming only Republicans or only Democrats or only whatever. Example here, we might have Hurricane Obama. You know, the sound of that kind of flows off the tongue, doesn't it? Or Hurricane Perry. After, you know, with our governor, though, I guess technically it would have to be Hurricane Perry, wouldn't it? But you see the idea. Or you would have your tropical storm Hannity, your tropical storm Pelosi. There's a lot of last names out there that haven't been used already, and that's part of the appeal here, because for one thing, almost everyone in public office is despised by someone, and so naming bad storms that tear houses up and get water all over your carpet and sometimes mess up your car, etc., all of that damage, let's blame it on political figures. You know, I think everybody would breathe deeply and relax a little bit if they could just call a hurricane by a bad name. For some, well, and there's a technicality here. There's a couple of things that need to be worked out, because, for example, if we've got a Hurricane Bush, well, it's not clear which Bush we're talking about. Same thing with Tropical Storm Clinton. You don't know if we mean Bill or Hillary, but I'm sure they'll figure out some way to work out the naming procedure if they follow that proposal. But there's another one about the only entity that you can name that is not despised, well, that is more despised than politicians, would be major corporations. And so there's a lot to be said for naming tropical storms like after corporations. Tropical Storm Halliburton, for example, or Tropical Storm Monsanto. I like the sound of both of those. Hurricane Exxon, Hurricane BP, something like that, you know. This may be the easier way to go, just because, well, just because it's easier. You know, there's only one Monsanto, there's only one Exxon, and so on. So there wouldn't be any confusion. And, you know, it doesn't really stop there. People just don't like these disturbing events, either natural or unnatural, that mess up their lives or their living quarters. And so there's movements afoot to start naming all bad stuff after bad actors, if you follow the logic here. I know there is some loose talk about naming disease outbreaks after, you know, these figures that are not held in high esteem. Or imagine this, when we have product recalls, you know, they say the hamburger meat in all of these stores is being recalled if it's got a code number 17222. That could be named after a bad actor, not just, you know, the recall from XYZ grocery store. So, I started this discussion of hurricanes and tropical storms by wondering aloud if this has something to do with global warming, because, you know, there's another camp of believers who say global warming and climate change has nothing to do with our weather patterns right now because the whole science is bogus. Well, and people do believe that. And that compelled me to do some research this week because, you know, a lot of people refer to these reports that deny any climate change, but how many people ever look at them? There is, for example, one of these famous ones, the Fossil Fuels report, that is often referred to by the people who want to say there's no global warming. But I started reading it, and you can see up here yourself, where people got that language is in a chapter that discusses something that happened with Sarah Finder and this fool that she knew. And this fool was going to expose Dick Cheney as a bad dancer. In any case, you can see right there was certainly no global warning that Edward was planning to cast doubt on Dick Cheney's dancing abilities. Global warning. There's no global warning, is what she was saying in this report. And I have read through the whole thing here. I took some notes. That report seems to say that Earth is moving away from the sun at a high rate of speed, and therefore we can't be getting any warmer. Silly report it is. Another one, you may have heard of the Whether or Not report. This is one, a lot of people, deny climate change, and they say this report does too, but as you can see right here, because I got a copy of the report to look at it closely, it's talking about defying climate change, not denying it. And I read through it. It's got a lot of silly proposals. It's saying we have all of these leftover space suits from when we were conducting serious space exploration programs, and we could put everybody in these suits or new rubber suits or unused diving suits, that sort of thing. Or we could put them in little bitty boxes about the size where chickens are raised to produce eggs, you know, those little things. Or we could invent some iPhone applications that would build a little shield, you know, silly. This book was. And I didn't stop there. I looked at another one. A lot of people are saying that energy independence is what we're after. That's why we have to continue to rely on these fossil fuels that, they just won't last forever, and they contribute to our carbon footprint. Well, one of the books that's often cited is called Energy Independence. But that's not really what it says. It's by this bozo professor named Bosworth Tufts, and it's really talking about energy independence. It's some sort of stupid philosophical treatise. I don't know where this guy comes from or where he went to grade school before he became a PhD, but his thesis is that most of us, to develop our character, we need to suffer at the hands of fools. And he even says fuels at some points in the book. And we have to suffer at the hands of tyrants. We can't do things for ourselves. We should let other giant entities do things for. So this book, often quoted to prove there's no global warming or climate change, it's also way off base. But are you surprised? I think I've given you reason in the past to believe that, that you can't believe these things that you hear from that part of the lobby. But enough about the weather, that part of the climate. You know, we also have a very negative political climate these days here in these United States of America. Cooperation is a thing of the past, and obstruction is the thing of the present and probably of the future as well. The main thing, obstruction, it's getting to the point where people who lose presidential elections figure all they have to do is refuse to go along with anything that was discussed as on the table when somebody got elected president, or stand in the way of it. You know what I'm talking about. Well, what I'm talking about in particular, Boehmer and the Republicans want to sue President Obama. And a lot of people out there who are not, you know, majors in political science, or, yeah, and, you know, that's my background, or just casual observers of politics don't understand what this discussion of suing over executive orders is. The president exceeding his authority using a bunch of executive orders. I mean, for goodness sake, executive orders have been abused for about the last 60 years by presidents of both the major parties, and for any number of reasons. That's how presidents do what they want if they can't get Congress to go along with it, or if they don't want people to know about what they're doing. So, yes, there's abuse, but you kind of wondered, so executive orders have not, in general, produced movement for lawsuits on the part of one political party directed at a sitting president, you know? Weird. So I, once again, did some research. I found out what executive orders are really bothering Boehmer and the Republicans, and I'll share that with you because you haven't heard it anywhere else. It looks like President Obama just uses his office to get things that wouldn't be easy to get otherwise. Here's a memo I was able to get a copy of where he's writing to Buzz. I'm not sure who Buzz is, but he's asking for some of the special golf balls. You know, anytime presidents play golf, important people play golf, they like to be able to put on a good show, and I think he's talking about those golf balls that have some kind of weird stuff on the inside, so even a little 12-year-old girl could probably hit a drive 250 yards. I think that's what he means. And so he apparently orders a bunch of these. But that's not all. I mean, ooh, this could be abuse. Here's one to Frank, and once again, I haven't been able to identify who Frank is, but this is about getting some booze for Air Force One because they keep running out. I mean, you see for yourself, I've never had filet de Chardonnay myself, but apparently if you're the president, you can get it. I have no doubt it's pretty darned expensive stuff. There's another one I didn't bring tonight. There's some dog food that the president gets for his mutt that you probably can't afford, and there are some portable teleprompters, I think. Well, anyway, that's the executive orders I think the Republicans are really talking about, is all this good stuff the president gets people to bring him, you know, that he probably isn't paying for it, okay? He's just ordering it. But, okay, enough about the particulars. You know, from this legal standpoint, and I'll give you some background here if you don't have it, you know, these suits against presidents, they almost never go anywhere. The people suing a sitting president have to have standing, all right? And I can tell you right now that when the Republicans started voting for this, they didn't have standing. As a matter of fact, I have a picture. Most of them were sitting down, Most of them were sitting down when this, well, okay, I'm playing with you a little bit there. But it's a legal concept, folks. You have to have standing to sue somebody. And what that means is you've got to show objectively some sort of demonstrable harm to the parties who say they have been harmed by somebody's action. And that's why it's real hard to get standing there. But there are examples of, to illustrate the point, let me explain other side of the coin. When somebody does have standing, and I'll explain what this slide is about in a minute here. When you do have standing, the ACLU, for example, has a suit pending against the National Security Agency. And it's reasonable because, as they say in a letter that you can sign going to Congress, the incredible abuse of government power demonstrated by the NSA spying program shows grave threat that secret and unchecked government surveillance programs present to democratic freedoms. That's all of our freedoms. And Congress was responsible for legislating into effect those massive spying programs, even though now they're saying they didn't know nothing about it. Didn't know nothing. Well, go back to 2013, last year. The head of our intelligence services, James Clapper, was on the Hill, as they say, and he was being asked by Congressman Ron Wyden about allegations that the NSA collected data on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans. And you may remember he said, "No, sir." And then he kind of hedged and said, "Well, not wittingly. There are cases where they could inadvertently perhaps collect, but not wittingly." I found that to be one of the most amazing statements ever. You see, we've said in past programs that the National Security Agency has built the biggest monster Orwellian apparatus in the history of the entire species, and it's sitting out west there. You can look up the old shows, historians, where I described it to you, where they're able to vacuum up every phone call, every email, every just about anything, every Nielsen rating, and they can siphon it up and put it in a file. But what they want you to believe is they went to the trouble of constructing this massive network, but they never really intended to read any of the emails or listen to any of the phone calls, or you see what I'm saying? Wittingly, they didn't. But here's what's funny. Mr. Clapper backed away from that statement, and I love what he said just after that. It is in explaining himself, he first said that he had given the least untruthful answer he could in an unclassified setting when he testified in Congress. I think if we need new standards, we've got one right there. And in fact, in a lot of relationships between men and women, boys and girls, this is probably going to be the new standard. When I told you that, darling, I was saying the least untruthful thing that I could under the circumstances. Oh, give me a break. That's how far we've gone. Now, of course, now later, he changed his story and he said, well, he had forgotten about this authority that's in the Patriot Act that says we can collect the records of every phone call in the United States. Oh, my God. Well, I can tell you that they do that. Remember, Patriot Act. You know what that says, USA Patriot Act? You know what it stands for? You know who wrote it? Who even wrote the title? Well, you know it was around way before 9/11. Most of it was written way, way before 9/11. But it's about uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. USA Patriot. Ha, ha, ha. Well, I can tell you why probably President Obama and other presidents refuse to kick these guys out when they do things like this. It's because they probably have something on them. Here's an example, and once again, I can't tell you how I acquired my own intercept report that the NSA did of me recently. This thing is not dated, but it's from this summer. You see there for yourself. Let's see. The subject, me, that's me, makes reference to hot date in speaking with an unidentified human male. Hot date may refer to some type of explosive carried in his pants. Well, I can tell you right now that that's simply not true. It also, I don't know why they're bothered by this, but it says that I speak in complete sentences and blah, 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 blah. They probably got something like this on YouTube, and that's why, folks, presidents and everybody else just refuse to stand up to these guys because they got something on you. In fact, well, I was tempted to show you something else on the iPad here, but I'm not going to do it. In spite of the fact that the government and government agencies specifically are listening to almost everything anybody says these days, it's amazing that people still take freedom of speech so seriously. At least in America, on the surface, there are all kinds of ways that Americans express their freedom of speech. For example, there's license plates, and I assume you've seen plenty of them out there. Sometimes people make general statements about themselves, like they kind of present who they are, the image by which they'd like to be known, all right? In this case, this particular license plate, what was weird is that the driver of this car was a woman, so I was confused by that. I wondered if I remembered correctly what this is supposed to be about, this attribution stud duck. I even went and looked it up on the internet. I bet you didn't know that if you Google stud duck, what you'll mostly find is a bunch of references to duck studs that people put on their, well, I don't know, on their jackets or something. I'd never heard of a duck stud until I checked on this. But anyway, I guess this man, if it's a man whose car was being driven by a woman, or this woman who's kind of odd, just wants everybody to know that it's not duck studs, but a stud duck. Yeah, people also express their political alliances on on some of their personalized license plates. In this case, neck, I have to think, refers to a redneck. You know, kind of that's sort of like, you know, in my mind, that's somebody identifying where they are on the political spectrum. Although, I suppose it's possible maybe that this guy is a roughneck, you know, working the oil fields or something. But what you mostly see is license plates that tell you where somebody is politically, if they want to make a statement like that. And then, of course, you have other people who talk about their allegiance to sports teams on their personalized plates. Although, you know, as I think about it, I'm not sure that the Bears are officially. I mean, I do remember some Bears that play football, but I always thought that it was named after the mammal. Maybe I just never looked at the uniform that closely. Although I suppose this could be a case where somebody is not expressing allegiance to a sports team, but to a preference for clothing or the lack of clothing, if you see what I mean. But you've seen thousands of examples like this. You know, I personally, you know, you have your run-of-the-mill license plates, and then you have these special license plates. And here's my license plate. People think this is not a personalized license plate, but the fact is that the reason that I chose this, you know, is that in ancient Cyrillic, this little figurine here translates into the phrase, "He who occasionally considers bathing in the creek." And that does describe me. The thing about it is I can't actually bathe in the creek because where I live here in the Montrose near downtown, I don't actually have a creek, but I think someday I'll have a house with a creek. And I like the idea of occasionally bathing in a creek. But I got to tell you something. If you put Cyrillic text on your license plate like I did, my personalized license plate, you have to be really careful, because some guy followed me around for a long time last week. Apparently he misread. He translated incorrectly, and he followed me around for about 15 minutes and then yelled something. So apparently he thought my license plate said that if you're missing a sheep, I probably stole it, or words to that effect. So anyway, just be careful if you use something that's always translated the same way, not in some spongy fashion like that. Freedom of speech, that's what I'm talking about. A lot of people express themselves on t-shirts. So like you've seen, I'm stupid and I'm with stupid, you know. Or I saw this one the other day, I'm a child, and then his partner had one that said, I'm with child. I'm not sure if she means, well, you see what I mean. It's sort of unclear what she meant, but people do make a lot of statements on their t-shirts. Some people like to give their rules in life, like just say glue, you know, and I never understood what they meant by that. But some people talk about their favorite drugs, or pretend like, you know, the drugs they would be taking, or what school they attended, what college, or which one they pretended that they attended, or, you know, what rock concerts, you know, they actually went to, or they pretended like they went to. But some of my researchers on the staff this week told me that a lot of people who wear the t-shirts are actually concealing chest tattoos that they got earlier in life that they now find inappropriate or inoffensive. Anyway, they do t-shirts. Americans also have signs that they carry with them to political rallies, you know. Almost everything these days gets down to some sort of version of presidential politics. Presidents get blamed for everything, so you have your pro-Obama and your no-Obama. While we're arguing about the health care law that has gone into effect, you have other people talking about Obamacare and the opposite side talking about Obama-nure. You know, I'm kind of tired of everything being laid at the doorstep of the presidents, you know, whatever president, but you know, it makes it easier to focus, and it does simplify expressing yourself politically when you do something like that. But people who want to express themselves politically and not just at a rally, their favorite device, their implementation strategy is to use bumper stickers. And I saw one the other day that sounded kind of familiar, but something was not quite right about it. I seem to remember somewhere when I wasn't paying attention in history class, maybe hearing something about give me liberty or give me Beth, you know. Or maybe that was Macbeth. No, maybe it was give me liberty or give me breath. No, it was... Anyway, I don't think this guy has it exactly right, or else he's working with an entirely new concept. I mean, this could catch on, I suppose. Give me debt. Another one I saw the other day that you've probably seen a lot of lately, I break for tuna. And I have to tell you, in all honesty, that there was a time when I didn't break for tuna. You know, it just, I would just, you know, I didn't. But I had some unpleasant experiences. I came around, and now I not only break for tuna, but also for pumas and every now and then I'll actually break for gardeners or people carrying gardening equipment across a road that I'm trying to drive on at 50 miles an hour or something like that. But hey, folks, the tuna are important to our lifestyle, and so I'm with that guy or that gal. I'm not sure who it was. I saw one the other day that's kind of typical of the Tea Party, and typical in more ways than one. I'm right and you're wrong. One thing that's typical in a lot of the put together quickly signs is misspelling words that we should know. So as an English teacher, you know, I couldn't resist taking 15 points off here for "you're wrong." Although maybe what he's talking about is "you're" as a modifier, not as a verbal construct, excuse me. And what he or she actually means is, I'm right and you're wrong. Talking about the wrong that you did. But if so, I think it could have been verbally constructed, a lot better. Do I have another version of it? No, I don't. But anyway, here's one you see in our neck of the woods. I've been seeing it a lot lately. No New Texas. And well, that also sounds vaguely familiar. I remember something like that in previous presidential campaigns. Oh yeah, it was a presidential, well, but here, I think what we're talking about is a response to Governor Perry, our own hurricane. Governor Perry's loose talk about Texas seceding, from the Union. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So somebody is saying no new Texas. I don't know if they're going to win that fight. If there is a movement to secede, I hope we can at least change the zip code so that we still get our mail delivered properly. I mean, that's that's very important to me. Now, this one I saw the other day. Well, I was perplexed. This person is, I think, worried about GMOs as we normally understand them, genetically modified organisms, but it's once again this problem that so many Americans who have a high school equivalency kind of an education bring to their political bumper stickers. Now, me personally, I have done some research, and there are some genetically modified organisms that I've been wanting to try out. In fact, I signed up to be a volunteer in several of these case studies. They haven't got back to me yet, but I'm hopeful that at some point I'll be able to experience this myself and then be able to report back to you on what a genetically modified organism would be like. And right now, in my mind, that's about, that's the same thing as trying to move Hawaii to some, oh, but they did move Hawaii. Anyway, I just got to mention one last thing I saw the other day because it just about blew my mind. And this was a new bumper sticker. You could tell it was freshly printed. It said, "Don't blame me, I voted for Nixon." Well, I'm not sure what he doesn't want us to, he or she, excuse me. I'm not sure what he or she wants us to not blame he or she for because they voted for Nixon. I mean, 40 years ago, the man left office in disgrace, you know, after Watergate, and that doesn't seem like 40 years ago, does it? But when you think about what led up to Nixon's resignation, you think about those perilous, adventurous, and in some ways magical 1960s. You know, at least some of us do, and I remember something about that. A lot of people, even who watch this show, and certainly some of my associates are so young that the 60s, well, they're all but they're just so envious. That's all I can say. They're so envious that people got to experience the 60s. They have this sense of them that is just beyond magical. And one of the things from the 60s that does survive to this day, because we have, radio stations that only play 40 songs, 40 hours a week, anyway, some of the music of the 1960s is still played. A lot of people, for example, ask me about the Jimi Hendrix Experience, whether I ever saw the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and I say, yeah, those guys, Jimmy was great, but what these people don't realize, because they weren't around in the 60s, is that there were a lot of other experience groups at the time. And since they may not remember them, and I do, I just wanted to enlighten them on the subject. There was a band called the Benny Sarcedo Experience, and they were famous for a tune called "The Wind Cries Jerry," and this apparently, I believe, was the inspiration for the Jimi Hendrix number that so many of today's youth do know. But I think Benny wrote it for his brother Jerry, because when there's more to it than that. But I think that's what happened. There was another group at that time, the Dolores Schwab Experience, and they had one album that was very famous. You may recall that one of the most famous cuts from this album, the one everybody remembers, is "Let Me Stand Next to Your Fire Hydrant." And once again, I think Jimi Hendrix was actually, he was inspired by that to write one of his own classics, "Let Me Stand Next to Your Fire." And the Dolores Schwab Experience, they were so magical. And there was another group I remember. Well, I remember several, but certainly I remember the Rudolph Guzman Experience. They had a powerful soul psychedelic sound, and a number called "Purple Hay." And a lot of us in that day tried to figure out exactly what purple hay was. We thought it might be something else to smoke. In those days when Donovan was talking about magical bananas and things, people thought there were drug references in a lot of songs, and certainly Purple Hay was one of them. I never did figure out what Purple Hay was, but you might, as I'm thinking about this, those, even though Jimi Hendrix is still remembered and his experience, these other experiences have kind of slipped into the shadows. If I remember correctly, Benny Sarcedo, or one of the guys in his group, was on the first expedition to Mars, I think, and I believe that in the case of Dolores Schwab, I know she started off with a chain of slow food restaurants, which was kind of an interesting idea, but then what really captivated America was fast food restaurants. So then after, as I remember, then she started hitting the bottle quite a lot, but she did have kind of a second career painting shoes. That's as I remember it, and she may still be painting shoes to this very day. And Rudolph Guzman, as I remember it, first of all, he made a living. He struggled, but he got by giving trampoline lessons for a few years. And I'm not sure if he's alive or dead, but I remember that for a while he was making these inappropriate lunch boxes that you could buy at some of the hippie boutiques. And I think Rudolph may have gone to the other side, so to speak. I mean, What do we mean, the other side? It sounds like Republicans and Democrats talking, doesn't it? Anyway, every time we get together here, we tend to talk about what's new on the internet, what's new with software, electronics, you know, because me and my staff, we keep up with what's going on out there. Just in case you missed it, we like to bring you abreast of the latest developments. Now, a lot of you probably have played the game Angry Birds. Yeah. And I bet a whole bunch more of you play Words with Friends almost on a daily basis. Am I right? Well, somebody out there got the idea of putting it together, these two concepts, and there's a new game on the internet there, a new app available to play Angry Words with Friends. Now, how does that fit into the modern sociological context? Well, you know, a lot of people, they would like to say things to their friends sometimes when they think their friend has gone over a line or, you know, over the top or been rude or something like that, but they really have been trained not to say things to people's face. You know, they usually get together with associates at the water cooler, and that's when they diss other people. But these pioneers have found that when people can use an app to send an angry message, you know, including video and text and I'm not sure how this works, but also smell, when they can send this angry package message to one of their friends, it helps them to get past something a lot quicker. So it's good psychologically for them, and it probably is good for their friends who are the target of the retribution, so to speak. But anyway, I haven't played it yet. Maybe some of you have, and you can report back to me. You know, we always seem to talk about surveillance like we did tonight. There's a lighter side of surveillance, because now there are websites out there where you can be a peeping Tom but not really a stalker, because you're not stalking anyone in particular. You just want, you know, a quick glimpse of somebody else's situation. Well, not just their situation. The website is called Bedrooms, Bathrooms, and Beyond. Some of you have probably gone there, and you know, I believe that it is actually funded by the National Security Agency. It says here courtesy of the NSA. I'm not sure what courtesy is, but it may be one of those practices that people don't really talk about, except, well, you know, between close friends. But what's interesting about this, it's kind of like you click here, and then you'll see either into a bedroom or a bathroom or something else, but you won't know whose. So it's very random, very random. So you don't feel guilty about, you know, well, I guess you feel guilty in a different kind of a way for being a peeping Tom. But you know what's interesting here? I noticed when I went to the site, you don't even have to enter a credit card number to use this, because the NSA and other intelligence agencies, for all I know, they've already got all of your credit card numbers, so they just do whatever they want. That's not the only interesting thing out there. Have you heard about Dick Cheney bathroom breaks? Well, this is one of those websites where you have to have a friend who knows about it tell you what the URL is to get there. But you can set up this application because somebody is keeping track of Dick Cheney's bathroom breaks, you know, when he gets up in the middle of the night to go pee. And you can set an alarm so that it's on your iPhone. You put your iPhone or your Android on the nightstand right there where you are. And if Dick Cheney gets up at 2:40 for a bathroom break, then you get a little warning alert, and you can be like Dick Cheney, and, you know, you can go to the bathroom also. I'm not sure how this appeals, I mean, what the appeal is, or yeah, I don't know how this works exactly. One that interests me, that you probably have heard some scuttlebutt about this, is a GPS system for when you're out of the body. Now, a lot of people have out-of-body experiences. They are interested in astral travel, but they're a little afraid, you know. And as a matter of fact, when I give people lessons on leaving the body, you know, while they're sleeping, one thing I always tell them about is, you know, you're likely to be afraid if you do find yourself out of the body, and then you usually just snap right back in. And so that's the end of your astral travel, you know, 5 seconds out, back in the body. Well, the beauty of this GPS system is that you can, when you're out of the body and you suddenly realize it, then you can use this GPS system to see where your body really is, and then you feel a lot more comfortable, so you don't freak out. Now, the trick with this is you can't actually buy this app while you're in the normal waking consciousness state. You have to get the app while you're out of the body. So, I mean, it's a little complicated, but it's worth the effort, you know. All right. There's another new application for Android and iPhone that emits terrifying sounds, well, sounds that are terrifying to shrimp. I'm not sure what that's about. There's one that apparently enables you to do fracking in your own backyard before the big energy companies get there and overrun your area. Well, anyway, technology. We have so much technology, and you know what? With all that technology, have you noticed how many things go missing these days, like missing airliners? You would think we would have enough technology out there to be able to locate some of these things that are missing, okay? Apparently, it's not that easy, but I bet there are things you didn't realize were missing. So I just want to bring you up to speed. When was the last time you heard anything about the Teamsters Union? Some of you, it's been so long, some of you probably don't know what the Teamsters Union is. All right, but I dug up an article here. It's in such a small newspaper that the Clarksville Gab, that I understand why you may have missed it, but they report from Buzzard Glue that the Federal Bureau of Investigation is scaling back a search they've done for members of the Teamsters Union, once an important force in the labor movement, because nobody's seen any of them for years. For years. That's not all. How many of you know that Wyoming is missing? You probably didn't know that. Well, I've got a picture, once again, top secret thing, can't tell you where I got it. Shows about the last time anybody saw Wyoming, one day when they were spraying some chemtrails here across that western expanse, and then it seems to have disappeared. You know, something just occurred to me. One of my researchers said that all they knew about Hawaii was that in the place where Hawaii used to be, there was now a flat, I'll be dead gum. I just wonder. But anyway, don't try going to Wyoming right now. It's not there anymore. It's not there. I was going to tell you some things about eggs, just because I always like to leave a little thought or two about eggs when I'm talking to you folks. Because these days there are so many things written on egg packages. You know, they say that things are free range and free roaming. But they don't say on there how long hens get to roam freely outside and how big of an outside it is that they have to roam in. Or they say vegetarian fed, but they don't say anything about the conditions under which they're vegetarian fed. Or they say cage free, but they might be talking about a room as big as a high school gymnasium that has 35,000 hens in it. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that a label can say, but there are just as many things that it actually does not say. And, well, I don't want to get egg all over your barbecue shirt, but you know what I'm talking about basically is labeling problems. And the reason that I bring this up is that I found a box the other day. I'm not going to say a box of what, but it said it was best used before September 2028. Makes you kind of wonder, doesn't it, about whether you're actually looking at a food product. Well, I gave something away. I told you what was on the box. I saw another box that was more disturbing than that. You've seen boxes that say this was manufactured in a facility that also processes wheat or soy or peanuts. And the one that I saw the other day said that it was manufactured in a facility that also processes toxins, and moving parts for a variety of weapon systems that have proved dangerous to slow mammals. So, next time you go into the grocery store, make sure you read what it is you're buying. Read about what it is you're buying. And next time that you're in Wyoming, make sure it's actually Wyoming. And don't book any passage to the Hawaii you used to know right now. I think it might be the Koch brothers who moved it a little closer so they could visit more often, but they haven't told any of the rest of us where it is. So I'm sure you've been enlightened, I hope not disturbed by all of this information, but if I wasn't devoted to bringing you this information and keeping my staff busy all the time, digging up the truth about all of these various subjects, then you probably would not know anything about it. And now that you do, I suggest you go out and do whatever you were going to do next. Okay? And until we see you again, just enjoy whatever it is you're going to do next. Good night.
People who need extra strength deodorant tend to populate the presidential press corps. They're like children dribbling their cornflakes till someone 9 times their age threatens to lock the cage, leaving the country defenseless and flabby. It is terribly shabby, but lovers are particularly dangerous. In defense of their favorite positions, they tend to be hardcore. Lovers leap before they've looked, and that is how the